Alright, so I don't know if this is just my algorithm, but I've been seeing a lot of videos going viral recently about women who are discussing not having a lot of friends. Hold on, I just realized I forgot to light the candles behind me. Just 1 second. There we go, much better. So today that is what we're going to talk about: female loneliness, women who don't have a lot of friends. We're going to watch some TikToks, talk about them, and then I actually have a theory about one of the reasons why I think a lot of women don't have friends these days. So I will share that after the first TikTok that I react to. Also, if this is a topic that you're interested in, just want to let you know that I just added some bonus materials to the connection course. Link below if you want to check that out. So let's start off with the first video that I saw on this topic of a woman talking about how she doesn't think it's fair when people stigmatize women who don't have friends.
So sick and tired of the toxicity that females have toward other girls that don't have a lot of friends. Like, literally even trends on TikTok where they say when you find out the reason why the girl who has no friends, it's actually heartbreaking and, like, actually feels like such a personal attack toward me. My whole life, like, I've literally struggled to make friends, and as I've gotten older, I'm still struggling to make friends. I've never really had consistent friends for long periods of time or through different seasons of life. And I've come to, like, grow up and have, like, self-awareness to realize, like, that they've all served a purpose, and there are also, like, possibilities as to the people that I need in my life and the people that I don't. And I've taken it all in stride, and I'm gonna cry. I've taken it all in stride. I'm trying to be confident to find my people. And it's like the biggest thing that I'm manifesting at the moment. And I feel like I literally can't even do that because now there's like this ideology that's spread that if you don't have friends, then you're like not worthy of having friends, or people should want to steer clear of you. Like, to me, that is the same as saying, like, I don't want to be in a relationship with you unless you're already in a relationship, because if you're single, then clearly you're not good enough to be in a relationship with. Like, do you guys see how that doesn't quite work? And it's just stopping me from achieving my goals. Like, I'm actually afraid to continue to go after what I know I need and what I've worked toward and what I know I deserve, because I care about what other people think, which is something I'm really trying not to do. But how can you not when you've almost created this species of person that I'm now falling into the category of? So let's stop that, okay? If people don't have large groups of friends or any friends at all, let's not jump to conclusions as to why that is.
So there's a lot in this video. I have some bullet points jotted down that I wanted to share. First of all, I love how she talked about how, like, she's had friends in different seasons of her life, but I think it's really important for us to remember that not all friends are forever. And we can kind of understand this with, like, romantic relationships. People go through breakups all the time, and we can understand, hey, yeah, it was nice while it lasted, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I learned some lessons. But now it needs to end, and that doesn't mean that it needs to be a blow to my self-worth or anything like that. It's just that people are very different. Sometimes people move apart, sometimes they're incompatible, sometimes circumstances change where they're no longer able to be close anymore, and not all friends are forever. When I went to middle school and high school, I went to an international school, and so a majority of people at the international school were, like, moving from place to place. Their parents were working for companies like Coca-Cola that were constantly taking them from, Atlanta to Greece to all these different places. And when you're in a setting like that, it's kind of hard to keep all the relationships because everyone's constantly moving and in flux. And that doesn't mean that the relationships weren't valuable while they lasted. It just means that a lot of things are impermanent. We can acknowledge that impermanence doesn't detract from something's worth in other situations, like, when you're enjoying, like, a beautiful nature walk in the fall. It's impermanent, right? You know that after the fall comes the winter, but that doesn't detract from its value. I will say I didn't love her relationship analogy. I don't think it's the same as, like, you won't date someone who's not already dating someone, because when it comes to dating, there is sort of like the exclusivity that's not really expected of friendships as much. I think maybe a more apt analogy would be steering clear of people who have never had a romantic relationship, not wanting a romantic relationship with them because you think maybe there's some sort of red flag, some sort of reason why they've never been able to hold like a long-term romantic relationship. So I think that would be a little bit more reasonable. I think if someone were to say, oh, I have a rule of not dating people who have never been in a long-term committed relationship, but I do think maybe it's limiting your options a little bit, maybe judging people without hearing their reasons. But I think people are kind of entitled to seeing things that way if that's the kind of people they want in their life. But also, like, if we look at this from like a social point of view, it does make sense for people to want to steer clear of social pariahs. Social status is in a lot of ways contagious. If you associate with high status people, whatever that means, whether it's people with a lot of resources, people with a lot of friendships, people who are really popular, that does kind of elevate your social status as well. And when you associate with the social pariah, as it were, sometimes people look at you sideways. And I don't think that's right at all. I think it's something we should absolutely try and minimize. I'm just saying, I think that might be part of the reason why people steer clear of those who don't have a lot of friends. And look, I think it's really important anytime something keeps happening to us for us to look at the common denominator. I'm constantly preaching about how if you find yourself having the same pattern or the same experience over and over and over again, look inward and think about what you might be participating in to produce that outcome. And it might sound harsh, but I really don't think that it has to be. The things you might need to take responsibility for or accept or like acknowledge of like, hey, this is why I haven't had long-term friends, aren't necessarily things that you should blame yourself for. If you've been, for instance, constantly on the move, like I have. I've lived in so many places my whole life that it's kind of difficult to have like a stable group of friends. That is something that is related to my decisions, my choices in life. It doesn't necessarily make me a bad person. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad friend. But if I want that outcome to change, then my actions have to change. I have to stay put in one spot. I feel like it's kind of hard because like in some situations, there are people, let's say with certain personality structures, who never really look at what the common denominator is and go through like all of these different conflicts in their lives, always kind of blaming somebody else, never really looking at what patterns they are participating in. So I wonder if maybe like that's what the TikTok she's referencing were about, about those people who have had a lot of high conflict relationships one after another. Maybe they're not talking about somebody like her who just, for whatever reason, has struggled to make friends. So like it's a fine balance is what I'm trying to say. It's a fine balance between acknowledging like someone isn't a bad person or not worthy of having friends just because they don't have friends, and also in some situations, a person has no stable relationships because they do really struggle with the healthy communication strategies required to have a healthy relationship. Now, I mentioned I have a theory about why women might be struggling to make friends. And this theory is actually from a comedy skit that I saw. So let me play the comedy skit, and then let me read you some of the comments in response to that comedy skit and how I think this ties in.
What do you think of my new neighborhood? Look at the skyline.
I know, it's so cute. I love it here. I've been coming here for years because of Cece, remember?
Oh, right. I always forget your friend Cece's here, too.
Well, she could be your friend, too. I mean, you guys are practically neighbors now.
Yeah.
You know what I realized? We should totally invite Cece to Halloween movie night this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like our tradition, but maybe.
Yeah, like maybe.
Wait, you know what I just realized?
What?
When I go to Europe next week, you and Cece should hang out in the neighborhood without me. No, it's perfect because then you guys will get comfortable with each other, and by the time I come back, we'll all be best friends. Oh my god, I'm gonna start the group chat right now.
I
This
don't
is
need to be
perfect.
friends with Cece. I don't want any more friends. I don't want any more.
So the types of comments under this video, I don't want any more friends, is truly an underrated statement. I've stopped trying to mix my friend groups, it just never works. I too do not need any more friends. My friend keeps inviting me to her broader friend group and I feel so awkward when I go. Same, no longer looking for any more friends. I have enough and my schedule is overbooked. So real, I'm over it. Okay, so do you see where I'm going with this? It seems like, and this is the first time that I've ever seen anything like this, there are some women out there who are not really open to the idea of expanding their friend group, who feel pretty pleased with the way that their social life is going and just don't want to add more to it. And this kind of bothers me because when it comes to something like friendship, it's not a matter of adding more people to your life is going to somehow detract, or like you're not going to be able to spread all your energy evenly among them, or you're going to start neglecting other friends. It's not like that. More people just bring more connection, more opportunities to grow, more opportunities for joy, more experiences. I've always been a person that kind of thirsted for connecting with people one-on-one. And I've also been the type of person who, like, when I have different friends, I have no issue sharing them with each other. I have no issue like making my friend from over here friends with my friend over here. I think the more the merrier, the more we can all get along, the better. But I'm realizing that not all people feel that way. And I think why this happens is sometimes people form a friend group that is so insular that it turns into almost kind of like a clique. And they don't want anything to disrupt the roles inside that friend group. They don't really want to put themselves outside their comfort zone and like, yeah, maybe you have to be a little bit awkward and embarrassing when you're putting yourself out there making a new friend. They don't want to do that. They just kind of want to stay in their lukewarm comfort zone, and they don't want anything to start any waves. So what do you think about this theory? Do you think this might be part of the reason why I think a lot of people are struggling to make friends right now? Because a lot of friend groups are already established and people just don't want anything to change in their social groups. Let's watch some more TikToks about female loneliness.
I don't have a group of girls. I don't have besties. I don't have a best friend. I've always been a really solo person. Like, my Enneagram personality is type 4, the individualist. Like, I've always been a solo kid when I was really young. I just wanted to play on my own, be on my own. I like being in my bedroom. Like, I've always been a very solo person. I don't know if it's that or a mix of that and the fact that when I was in school, I had really toxic friendships. I had really difficult experience with friendships. My best friend was my bully. If you know, you know. And I just find it hard to connect. However, I always have this feeling of emptiness and longing for this friendship. I've never been on a girls' trip. I've never had like a birthday party with friends. Like, my birthday party is family. And the thing is I'm such a family person as well. Like, to be honest, I'd love to spend my days with my sister, with my niece and nephews, hanging out with my mum. I'm a homebody. I love being around my boyfriend. Like, I've always been like that, and I know so many girls, people are like that. However, it doesn't take away the fact that I would just love to have friends. And I've always felt like I must be a massive bitch. There must be a reason. I must be the problem. It's difficult, but the thing is I consider myself a very nice person, a very good friend. I will have your back. If you need me, I'm there. If you ring me in the middle of the night, I'm there for you. I will trust you. I'm trusting. I'm trustworthy. I'm a girl's girl. I will have your back. I will be on the phone to you to whatever time, giving you relationship advice if you're going through it. I will never judge you for going back to that guy again and again and again. Internally, I might have my opinions, but I'll support you, okay? There's been people in my life especially where we get really close and then we just like drift, and it's not even a situation of like I've fallen out with everyone. Like, I don't do fall out. So I don't fall out with people. We just like detach and we become disconnected. I just know I'm not alone. I've spoken about this in my podcast and so many people have said to me like, I'm so glad you said this because I can really resonate with you. I can really relate to you. So the reason I'm making this TikTok is to reassure anybody that feels the same as me. It's really embarrassing to admit, and I think it makes us sound like we're really horrible people, but I think it's really important to put out there that it doesn't make you a horrible person if you don't have friends. And if anyone wants to be friends with me, please can we be friends?
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a more solo person. I also was the type of kid that liked to be alone, knew how to keep myself occupied. And, you know, we as a society are making a lot of efforts to destigmatize people not wanting romantic partners in their life, or people not wanting to have relationships with their family members for different reasons. But for some reason, it's so hard for people to accept that maybe there are some people for whom friendship is not that important. And why is that not okay? Why is it okay to not want a partner, to not want a parent? But the moment you say, no, I actually value my family or my partner more than I value my friendships, ooh, careful. People are going to get real triggered by that. I think the bottom line is, are you socially supported? Do you have at least a handful of people that you could go to if you really need to? If the answer is yes, it doesn't matter what kind of relationships they are. It doesn't matter if they're family members, if they're your partner, if they're your friends. All we need is social support. It doesn't really matter where it's coming from. And something else that she touched on is, how relational traumas can sort of snowball into adulthood. If you've had relational traumas or experienced things like bullying, I think it can almost kind of become like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because You're always hypervigilant around people, always kind of expecting to get hurt by people, and then that can cause problems. Or you can actually start to recreate those patterns, hoping to have a corrective experience, hoping that like, oh no, this time I'm gonna try to be friends with this really mean woman and it's gonna turn out great and we're gonna be really tight, right? This time's going to be different. So yeah, like having those early experiences, having difficult relational history, I think does make it harder for you to have those relationships further down, unfortunately. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you endured those relational traumas. It just is a thing that happened that you now have to live with. One more video.
My life not being anybody's best friend. So I'm not anybody's best friend. I'm not involved in a friend group, and I basically am the emergency friend. I'm not the priority friend. I am the friend that gets called usually when there is extra space available and they need bodies. I'll get a call. Or, you know, if somebody cancels and it's a last minute invite that needs to be filled, then I'll get invited. But 9 times out of 10, I'm not the friend that is invited right off the bat. I don't belong to like a robust friend group, and I really don't belong to a friend group at all. And I don't have anybody that calls me their best friend. This can be like pretty isolating sometimes because society puts a lot of pressure on us to have like a best friend and to definitely have a friend group. And I know that, like we've talked about in my comments before, if I were to like get married, my side of the wedding would be basically empty and void except for like 3 friends. So that's my life of being like the backup friend.
Yeah, this is hard to watch. Like, it's sad to hear these things, but maybe it shouldn't be so sad. Maybe we don't need to pathologize everyone that doesn't have a bunch of friends, because they could be perfectly satisfied with their life and they could be a perfectly nice human being. And the concept of like a best friend has always been dubious to me. I've always, even as a kid, when people would say like, oh yeah, you're my friend, but like she's my best friend, I was like, that's so weird. Why are you like putting your friends in a hierarchy and like comparing? Like, this shouldn't be a competition. And honestly, I also find friend groups to be often problematic. I'm much more of a like one-on-one person when socializing. I want to connect human to human. I think when you add more people into the mix, you get a lot of really ugly sociological dynamics, a lot of tribalism, in-group, out-group differentiation. Things can get very mean. People can start scapegoating. Yeah, so like groups can be really toxic. To tell you a little bit of an anecdote about that, my freshman year of college, my college roommate and I, we had been friends since middle school, started to hang out with like a group of a couple other girls. After a few weeks, you know, this pattern had started to form where we would all go to the cafeteria and eat all these meals together, and it was starting to feel like a clique. And I said to my roommate, like, I don't like how this feels. This is starting to feel icky to me. Like, this is starting to feel like it's veering into something that I don't really like, that I've never been a part of, and that I don't want to be a part of. And after a couple months, things did disintegrate, and, you know, like there started to be infighting within the group. And so I was like, you know, kind of told you so. And so I think like when you see these friend groups like going on these girls' trips and having these really elaborate like group Halloween outfits and stuff like that, you can feel a lot of FOMO, and it can feel like, oh my God, I'm missing out on this crucial experience that everybody but me seems to have. But you don't know what's happening in that friend group. You don't know how toxic the dynamics might be. You don't know the infighting that's going on. You don't know how they're being nice to each other's faces and then gossiping behind each other's backs. This is stuff that I hear from my friends who have like really solid established friend groups. When I actually ask them like, oh, how did this bachelor party go? Or how did this wedding go? I start to hear that like things are not always as picture perfect as they look on the surface. So all that to say, like, don't feel too bad. If you don't have a friend group, if you don't have a best friend, ask yourself instead, do I have a handful of people I could go to if I really needed to for social support? And if the answer is no, do consider branching out. Do consider trying to find those people in whatever medium works best for you, because life can be really hard if you don't have that. But at the end of the day, you don't need to have a million friends. You don't need to be popular in order to be happy and satisfied. In a lot of ways, having those really strong friend groups can bring more drama in your life. Let me know what you thought of this video, and I'll see you soon.